If you are pondering a career change, you might have wondered, how do I get my resume seen? How do I get in front of the hiring manager, the person who is going to give me that brand new job opportunity? Today on the podcast, I am chatting with Sindy Thomas. She went from working years and years as a recruiter to now being an independent career strategist. We are going to talk about what it's like on the inside of hiring so that you can get the tools to learn about what you want to do in your next career and how you can get seen and hired. I am Shannon Russell, the host of the Second Act Success Career Podcast, a business coach for women, and the author of Start Your Second Act. Let's dive in. Sindy, welcome to Second Act Success.
Thank you, Shannon, for having me. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Let's start from the beginning. Where did your career first begin?
I went to school to be a teacher. I started teaching at the high school level when I was in a junior in college. I got the opportunity to teach at my old high school because I stayed in contact with my favorite teacher she was over the PE department. And I'd go check in with her and let her know what I was doing and stuff. And she said, we don't have a dance program. And at that time, I originally started studying for my degree in PE, but I got very interested in dancing. I had an emphasis on dance, which she realized how enthusiastic I was about dancing. She said, well, why don't you come teach a dance class? So I did for the first year, I taught just a dance class. And then the next year, I taught a dance class and a bunch of other things like speech, because speech drama was my minor. And so that was my foray into teaching. Also with the Oakland Parks and Recreation Department, teaching dance all over the city. It was a lot of fun.
What a way to start your career as a young girl outside of college, and you're getting to dance and work with kids that weren't that much younger than you at the time, probably.
Yeah, probably got 5, 6 years difference.
They probably really looked up to you.
Yeah, they did. They really related because I was so close to their age. I was probably the youngest teacher there. I was doing a dual master's. I'm working on a master's in to be a principal, but also working on a master's in dance. It got hard financially because you're doing all this stuff. And I got a full-time job for the summer that was a regular full-time job. I was going to quit it when September rolled around, but I ended up staying. And then from that point on, I just kept working. So my first job was just a clerk job in an advertising department with a newspaper. Then from there, I went to work in a bakery. And so I would work in the manufacturing environment for about 7 years. And I always credit that job as a job that I grew up on because I had to deal with the adults that would get in your face when they didn't like what you did. Because I was a scheduler. It was a union environment, and I just learned a lot there. I went off to UPS. I was the office manager. Eventually, I stopped working for a while due to illness. During that time, I kind of figured out what I wanted to do for next steps. And at that time, I went back to school. I learned computers because they were just, I hate to date myself, but they were just starting, So I went back to learn how to use computers, and I've been using it ever since. And was a godsend. But at that time, I ended up working as a facilitator. And what I did was I taught inner city youth between the ages of 17, oh God, and 21 how to find work because it was inner city youth. And a lot of them, the examples of their lives was not really seeing working parents
Mhm.
or not working parents in an office environment. I taught them about the simple basic things that you learn growing up in a household of parents that work. I taught them how to interview. We worked on their resumes, all of those things. And then at the end of the program, my cohort, she found them work. And it was really fulfilling.
When you were in college and starting out teaching dance classes, now you're using your teaching and all of your work experience from over the years
Mm-hmm.
into really
Mm-hmm.
helping them. That's like bringing
Mm-hmm.
everything's full circle in a sense.
It was, and it was a lot of fun.
Mhm.
And I would find these great speakers to come in and talk to the kids and talk to them about and I hadn't thought about this. I'm just seeing the connection now with my podcasting, but I would bring these people in to give them examples of individuals who are successful, a lot of young Black successful people to speak to them. It was a wide variety of people, but I like to find people that look like them
Mhm.
to inspire them, and it was great. So I was working for a not-for-profit. I worked for a couple of agencies, employment agencies, and then from there, I went in-house to be a recruiter in-house, and from there, I've stayed there because I really loved it. Worked in talent acquisition for over 25 years.
So you're doing recruiting and you're again bringing in all of your past experience into being able to help these people find their perfect jobs and really partner companies with the perfect employees. In
Yeah.
25 years, I can't imagine everything that you've learned over
Oh
the
my god. Yeah, I've worked across multiple industries, information technology, actually on both sides of the house doing hardware, recruiting hardware engineers, hiring software engineers. It was a very interesting time in the job market, and I stayed in the biotech and pharmaceutical industries for the last 13 years of my working career. Working in different industries, as a recruiter, when you're working on positions, the manager and their team is suffering because you aren't getting them the right people that they need.
Mm,
So that was a fascinating aspect to me because as a teacher, you're always doing research, you're always learning stuff. And I had that same aspect, right? And so it really made me happy. And being able to help people, which is what teaching is, you're helping them learn, helping individuals find a job, helping the manager and the team find a new coworker and colleague, and then helping the company succeed because you are finding the right people that are going to come in and stay and contribute. When you look at your career from that perspective, it's fantastic. So I really loved what I did and I
so
excelled at it because I loved it. And that's what happens when people love what they do. Good things happen.
you
So
ended your working career there, but then you weren't finished. You weren't ready to retire and just ride off into the sunset. You decided to keep working and create kind of a business of your own.
I knew I was getting close to I'm on the back end of my career. I'm not on the front end of it, right? So I'm not an individual that can sit still for very long. You got to do something. I've been thinking about this and praying about it for years. And the answers that I received was do something along the lines that I'm doing, teach people, help them understand how to find jobs, help coach them so they understand how to be successful. Teach them what you know and what you have learned throughout the years. And that's pretty much the basis of the podcast that I do. I shed light on diverse careers that allow listeners to see and hear what different careers look like. And then they can take that information and go learn more if they're interested and really hear how those particular careers majoring in this particular area, there are multiple avenues that you can go into. Just like teaching, you can teach philosophy, you can teach
Mhm.
PE, you can teach dance, you can teach science. I mean, there's all kinds of things from one area overlapping profession of being a teacher, a professor, an instructor. And the same is true for engineers, for nurses. I mean, for so many different careers. It's not just I do this and this is what I'm doing. There are many ways for individuals to grow, and I want the listener to hear that and to hear how people reached the conclusion that that was the right career for them
Yeah.
because a lot of them didn't start off doing that, just like I didn't start off doing what I was doing. I love talking to people. I love interviewing them and hearing their life story and how they got there and where they grew up and all of that, trying to make it as interesting as possible.
It is inspiring. This is what my podcast is about too. The reason I started Second Act Success, the podcast, is to share those stories so people can listen and say, oh, if she can go from that to this, then I can too. And
Mhm,
yours is so
mhm.
similar. And actually, people can listen and learn about different careers and what is involved and take that information and decide where they want to go. And you also work as a career strategist now with individual clients. Is that right? And
Mhm.
you help
And
them
coaching.
and coaching. And so you can help them figure out what they want to do next. I find that we're in a very different world right now where the
Oh my
industry, every
goodness.
industry is just changing and there's massive layoffs happening everywhere. So,
Mhm.
how do you work with clients now? How are you finding your work now to be so different than when you were recruiting for these companies? Luckily, you have the background, so much experience to help your clients now.
Very true. And when you like what you do, you stay in tune with what's going on, or at least I try to. I do a lot of reading. I'm checking out so many different websites, so many different newsletters, so many different articles to keep up with what's going on. And I think especially for young people, they don't realize how quickly this job market has changed. When I look at the course of my career and what changed since the pandemic and the onset of AI, the pandemic was a drastic disruptor with regard to change, with regard to work. You really had to change the way that you thought about managing people and finding ways to hold them accountable, even hiring. It's just going to continue to happen and continue to happen. And my advice to anyone who is working, to anyone who is trying to get into the workforce, or anyone that's trying to find a job again, is that you really have to not just find a job. You can find some place to work. You can have a maybe you are a professional person, and I hope that you are. But if you are not, you're going to need to go back to school to be retrained in something. And before you invest your time and your money doing that, you really need to take a look at where the jobs are going to be because it's changing. There are not going to be these quote entry level jobs that used to be the clerks, the administrative assistants, even executive assistants. Those are going away because savvy directors, vice presidents, even CEOs and C-suite people, they do a lot of that themselves.
I have a question because I have heard this from many clients, many women that I speak to, that as they are thinking about changing careers, looking for work, that AI is blocking a lot of their progress because they're finding that there's not someone on the other end of the line like you were to sort through these resumes and applications. Now it's a bot. And I'm always getting asked, what can I do with my resume or cover letter to get it seen by a human so it surpasses the bot? Are you having a lot of clients that you coach running into the same problems?
Individuals can apply online, and with the onset of being able to press a button and apply to 1,000 positions, I would recommend not doing that. Yes, you can apply because employers need you to apply online. You need to circumvent the system and you need to use your network to do that. You should have a developed network. If not, start working on it now. But go into LinkedIn because that is the standard of finding work these days. But it's also the standard of networking. And you can find people in LinkedIn that are working for the company that you want to work for. You can find an HR person. You can find somebody in that department,
Hmm.
or you can find a friend that you know, and it may be a friend of a friend of a friend, but you can reach out to them and see if you can send them your resume and see if they can pass it along to the right individual for you. And I know we would hate it when we get the resumes coming the other end,
Yeah.
because then you have to act. But yes, there are these bots and systems that are blocking people. I also understand that there's a lot of bias in those systems, but you've got to find a different way. There are still networking events that happen that are live. You can join on LinkedIn. I am part of Network After Work. You can join these different groups and
Hmm.
find people in the groups that you can network with and see if they can help you. Now, the other thing when I say find people to help you, you
Hmm.
have to be willing to help them.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so networking is a two-way process and you don't just take. You you may not be able to help that person now, but you can make sure that they understand that when you are able to help them, when they have a request, that you're going to follow through.
You have to
Mhm,
be more proactive in these days
mhm.
and in
Yeah,
reaching out and making those connections and then nourishing those, not just, "Hey, it's great to meet
absolutely.
you. Not gonna talk to you again until I need you."
Yeah.
It's
Do some coffee meetings, do some,
mhm.
if they have a virtual coffee, or if they're actually amenable to it, meet them face to face at a Starbucks or a
Yeah, yeah.
Pete's, you know? So, yeah, do that and just get active in the process. You don't know who you will meet, you stay in contact with them.
I always urge people if they're not on LinkedIn, that's where you need to be spending your time instead of scrolling on Instagram or Facebook. It really is LinkedIn to just comment. I always say 15 minutes a day, throw out some comments, do a
Mhm.
post about something, share an article. You never know who's going to see that. And the more you engage, the more the algorithm shows you other people and the more you can just
Exactly.
keep yeah, you can
Mhm.
just keep accepting
Yeah.
and know that it's almost like karma, right? If someone asks you for a favor or an introduction, do it because you never know how that can come back to you.
Mhm.
Yes, it makes it a lot harder than just submitting and hitting that click button to submit your resume. It's just not the world we're living in anymore.
Yeah, and you're taking the care to take it one step further, which shows you are truly interested in finding that career, connecting with somebody there. But it's also the standpoint of, don't just apply to so many jobs that you don't even remember what you applied to.
Mhm.
One, keep a record, and two, only apply to those jobs you really want. When you find a job, do a little research before you click that button. Take a look and find out what that company is truly about. Look at their products and services. Is that something that's going to align with you and your moral standards? If it's not, don't work there because if you get a job, you're not going to be happy and you're going to end up moving on and having to do the whole process again. The more time you spend in your job search, paying attention to the types of employers that you are working with, and not just look at the jobs, look at the people that are running the company, look at where they've been, see what you can find out about them, do that research, look at their finances. All those things are important because you can't always find out everything, right?
Mhm.
But you can work for a company that's not financially sound. Especially if you're going to work in smaller environments like startups.
Mhm.
You have to look and see where, they are with their funding, what round it is, how close they are to developing whatever it is they're developing, and find out what you can about whatever that particular product or service is. You really have to do your research. You have to be
Mhm.
smart. You really do have to pay attention and if you wanna have a good career, you're continually learning and staying in touch with the job market, what's going on, where are the market trends, just what's happening with technology and how it's affecting business. There's just so much. Narrow it down to your particular industry and then look beyond. I realized that I didn't want to go back to do that anymore. I didn't even look for work. It became a podcast and then became expanding into coaching. And I do like that. I think that I can bring so much to clients because of my in-house experience of knowing exactly how it works. Because I was the recruiter, I was the one interfacing with managers and doing the offers and preparing the offers and extending it. Then I can share with them exactly how that process works.
Mhm.
So I like what I'm doing now.
Yeah. Tell me about the podcast and all the ways that people can connect with you. If my listeners are listening and say, I need to work with
Oh,
Sindy.
yeah. For the first 4 years, I did all audio podcasts, and they are on YouTube. They're on all the major places like Amazon and Apple. You can also find my podcast on my website, the Insiders Career Club podcast, www.insiderscareerclub.com. And if you can't remember that because it's kinda long, they can go to Google and they can put in my name. And that is spelled differently because it's Sindy, Thomas with an H, and it will come up. You'll be able to find me that way. Connect with me on LinkedIn, connect with me on Insta. I'm Cindy the Insider on Instagram. You can find me on Facebook.
I'll link to everything in the show notes as well so everyone can find it easily. And thank you so much, Cindy. Thank you for talking us through your career path and all the good you put out in the world through recruiting and now through your coaching and podcast. Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Second Act Success podcast. If this episode has you thinking about starting a business or growing the one that you already have, I offer free Second Act strategy calls. This is where we map out what makes sense for your business and your life. You can book yours now at secondactsuccess.co/strategy or grab the link in the show notes below. As always, thank you for being here. Until next time, I'm your host, Shannon Russell, wishing you the best day ahead as you plan your second act. I'll see you on the next episode.